going to call this meeting to order. Can you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for coming. Tonight we're starting out with our annual meeting and budget hearing, and for that we need the election of a chairperson, so I'm looking for nominations for someone to chair this meeting.
I'd like to nominate Bob Travis.
Second.
First and second, are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? All right, from there, we will move to approve the agenda as the order of business. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as the order of business?
I move we approve the agenda as order of business.
Second.
All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? All right, item 5, approve the annual meeting minutes of 2021. Need a motion to approve last year's minutes.
Make a motion that we approve last year's minutes from 2021.
I'll second.
All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Item 6, superintendent report. Dan?
Yes, thank you. We are here at the annual meeting, and it's a chance for us to talk a little bit about the great things that are going on here in the Plymouth School District, and also a chance to look at the numbers for the upcoming year's budget proposed, and for the citizens to have a say in that as well. So welcome everybody tonight. First of all, I'd like to thank the community for the support that they continue to show over the years. This has been a fantastic community supporting our school district. It's a tight-knit community, as evidenced by any number of things, including big turnouts for homecoming parades and people from industry supporting efforts in our classrooms with equipment or field turf or all those kinds of things. So the proof is in the pudding, and this community continues to step up time and again for the students of the district. So again, thank you to the community. And I'd like to also thank the Board of Education for their leadership. Many of you have been on this board through thick and thin for a lot of years, and some of you are a little bit newer, but you've all experienced the highs and lows of leadership already. There are lots of different issues that come at you, and you have to, in a dispassionate way, try to understand those concerns, bring them forward, talk about them, and you do that. And because you do that in a way that's unified, that is better for our students. When there's a unified board that is pushing for the same things, maybe different opinions, different viewpoints on things, but ultimately our goal is always the learning and growth of our students in this community. And when you pull in that same direction, the students really benefit. So again, thank you for your leadership. Plymouth School District is a great place to learn and grow. We've got our pillars, and first among them is our academic excellence. And you can come out of this K-12 education system ready for whatever you want to do in your life. And so we've got all kinds of things, from daycare for young families to over 50 college credits that you could earn as you walk out the door here, leading to your next step of life. So it's a huge gamut of different opportunities for kids here, and it's a wonderful experience when a student starts in 4K and they go all the way through to their graduation, and they're going into the trades, they're going to the military, they're going to a 4-year university of their choosing, they're going to a tech school, and they've got a ton of support and backing and experiences, maybe even in the real work world, as they leave us. So it's a great place to be for that. We want our kids to be prepared for life after their 12th grade. We've got all kinds of things that help them get there. We have CTE courses that are technical education, are business education, education for financial literacy, education in how to be a nice person to other people. All of those things are extremely important that they get here. Our students that are going on to post-secondary college, post-secondary experiences in college, averages 22 on their ACT, and that is a fantastic number. So as an average, so that's a wonderful thing. Our students that graduated and go into the trades, if you had been at our last year's ceremony for our awards night, there were a bunch of kids receiving scholarships to go directly into the trades and become registered apprentices. So whether you're going to, it doesn't matter what aspect of life you're heading to, this district prepares you for what you want to become. And so that's a great thing. We also have all kinds of other things for kids to learn and grow in our another pillar, which is our excellence in extracurriculars. And we've got drama, music, service organizations, sports. We really have an emphasis here on kids being involved in this community, in this school district. And if any student has any interest, we probably have a club or an activity or a sport or something for them. And so there's always places for kids to be. We also are focused on continual improvement in the district. We work on the materials that we use. We work on our curriculum. We work on our pedagogy. We work on our communication. We work on our transparency all the time. And so all of that is intended to have the workforce in this district that ultimately teaches the kids and helps them grow to be the best that they can be and to always be looking for improvement along the way. And of course, we do all that while being extremely financially prudent. We are one of the lower spending districts in the state, and we'll hear more about that later. I don't necessarily like that, but it is the fact that we do a lot with a little. And so for that, to the administrators in the room, to the teaching staff that's in the room, and to community members who are involved in things that help out into community education, all of those things play a role in our ability to keep moving forward with the resources that we have. So thank you to everybody here for participating in tonight's meeting. And with that, I will turn it over to our board president, Bob Travis.
All right, thank you. And it's now time for me to give my address. And one of these days, Dan and I will need to coordinate because basically I could just say ditto and we'd be pretty close to saying the same thing. But we didn't talk ahead of time. So again, this is just heartfelt and what I saw over the past year and what I see going forward into next year. Last year we ended and I cited 3 key initiatives that I thought we'd be taking on in the coming year. And last year we ended on taking on 4 things. And it's thanks to the community, it's thanks to the staff, it's thanks to the administration, to all the teachers in this district and all their hard work. Those initiatives that we identified, we started down the path and the results are starting to show. And we've got more work to do, but I think we're going to see more and more of those. But those areas of focus, academics, we asked the administration and the staff to take a look at how we measure academics. What do we look at? What are those key measures? We've started to see some things. We've had a lot of great discussion with Dina, and she's told us a lot more about iReady and Bridges and all of the different pieces that go into the curriculum to get a better understanding. We also talked about sustainability, that we're going to launch into becoming more sustainable. Aaron, you brought up even sustainable toward our staff, and looking forward as what are we going to do to attract people to this district to teach, to have their career here, to stay here. Key point in sustainability, we're starting to look at that now, but sustainability, all from the more conventional approach to sustainability, we made the decision to get the pesticides and herbicides off our grounds, and that's what we did last year. We will be doing more with sustainability. The third focus was extracurriculars. We all recognized last year that mental health is going to be a key focus for our students, or to attend to our students. We need to be talking about mental health, and we all were made aware of the benefit of the extracurricular programs to get the kids engaged in school, to get them active and excited about school, to find communities within the community of school. Those are all things that help mental health. And a lot of new initiatives came about this past year in extracurricular, and we hope to see more. The final thing, it wasn't something I identified as a key initiative, but because you have to be flexible, was communication. And it became very, very clear that as school board, as a academic team, that we aren't always communicating clearly enough to the community, and the community, as they responded, were not always feeling they were heard. So we're trying to work through all of that. We did move forward with the survey this year. We're still vetting out all the detail and all the information. It was a big body of work, but we did find that there are a lot of questions out there that just can be answered simply enough with an FAQ. But there are other bigger questions that we will still have to delve into in the coming year, and try to have better conversation around some very sometimes difficult issues. So for the coming school year, we're going to see more of the same. More of this work we will continue. Just because we made them initiatives last year, it doesn't mean we're done. So we've got more work to do. But in addition to that, we do have the coming challenges of school funding. And yes, we have our ESSER funds, but the reality is those funds are supplementing our state budget that is not increasing the way it should. So that's going to be a big challenge for this entire community, challenge for all of us that sit at this board table. We need to start thinking about it now. We have a little bit of time, but the clock is ticking. Along with that, teachers, again, we are seeing the teacher shortage coming. We have to focus on what it is that we can do with our community, with our environment, with our schools to excite teachers that they want to work here. What are we doing to think about their career path, and how do we make this a sustainable, wonderful place for teachers to be? Because they are key to educating our children. Finally, when it comes to educating our children, I think there's a challenge to all of us as a community, and that's what I really want to speak to. We are all responsible for teaching the next generation. Our example, we are the role models. And Dan, you mentioned leadership. We show leadership when we come together and our kids are watching. So when we speak to one another, when we're listening, we show respect. When we're speaking, we speak with respect and we listen. Those are all the role model things that in this room, if we do nothing more, if we can give that gift to our kids that this is how you can disagree and still come to common ground. If we can figure that out as a community, as a school board, as administration, then we are becoming the role models for our kids as we prepare them for the 21st century. And that's my report. All right, moving on. Budget hearing summary. Amy.
Okay, everyone received a packet of PowerPoint from the supervisor tonight.
for the 2022-23 budget and tax levy. Just a quick budget overview that school district budgets are divided into two categories, which is revenue and expenses. The first category we're going to talk about is our revenues. Just a little overview of the revenue limit. In 1993, the Wisconsin legislature instituted a limit or control on the revenue a school district is entitled to receive each year. At that time, Plymouth School District was one of the lowest revenue limit districts in the state. And to date, we are listed at the very minimum dollars per student revenue limit in the state. So we have not moved anywhere in terms of revenue limit. The control applies to revenue received from two sources, which is our general state aid or equalized aid and our local levies, which is our tax levy. All Wisconsin school districts must operate within their revenue limit, which is formulated by the state. However, each school district could potentially and does receive a different per pupil amount. So revenue limits are different from district to district. Our revenue limit for this school year, there's a huge calculation to it, but the main components of it are, is calculated using the average student count over the last 3 years, multiplied by the per student revenue limit, which is set by the state budget. So we currently have a declining 3-year rolling average on our student count, which does not help our revenue limit over the years. You can see on the right where it shows you, where it shows our average student count has declined over the last 3 years. And on the left is our student count, which has also declined a little bit as of last year. Not as bad as what I had predicted. The revenue limit this year is based on $10,000 per student for Plymouth, which is a $0 increase since the 2020-21 school year. So this is the third year that the revenue limit has been frozen by the state. Just a recap of how we calculate our revenue limit. Again, we take that 3-year rolling average of our students, which is 2,098, multiplied by our revenue limit per student, which is 10,000. There's a couple of exemptions in here. Hold harmless exemption. An easy explanation is that you can't have, a school district cannot have a revenue limit base less than the previous year. If your enrollment is declining quickly, you will receive a hold harmless exemption to bring you up to a base from last year. Next year, that will probably change. Our base this year, from last year to this year, is already obviously $330,000 less. So next year will be $330,000 less on our base revenue limit. Then we have a declining enrollment exemption, which you receive if your enrollment is declining, that 3-year average, to help balance out your revenue limit and what you can work under so that it's not a direct hit. So both of these exemptions can disappear and will, and both have to do a lot with enrollment. Then we can add in refunded or rescinded taxes, which is just some taxes that we had to pay back to, if someone appeals their tax or they don't pay their tax. Then we add in any prior year open enrollment students if we miss them on a count or on the third Friday counts in September or January, which we didn't have any this year. And then we add in private school vouchers. There's a slide that will have a comparison of private school vouchers, but this year, it looks like we receive this money, but we don't. So $590,000 is taxed to our citizens, but goes to private school vouchers. So the result is our revenue limit this year is $22,245,400. The revenue limit, which is funded by state aid and local levies, makes up 76% of our annual budget. Other sources of revenue above the revenue limit are state and federal grants, categorical aid, which is special education aid, library aid, computer aid, admissions. You know, we do receive some revenue from sporting events and focus on energy programs and E-rate programs and things like that. It's not very significant, but it is in there. To compare our revenue from last school year to this school year, I have listed the actual revenue from last school year and budgeted revenue for this school year. You can see the local sources are much lower. Our inter-district open enrollment is fairly static right now based on our predictions. CESA sources went up a little bit. State sources went up quite a bit. Our federal sources went up a lot because ESSER is included in there. Some other miscellaneous revenue categories stayed relatively the same. The biggest hit to our budget this year is this one, the interfund transfer to cover special ed costs, which are not covered by grants. We have to list them as a revenue, and they're also an expense. You can see it's about $550,000 more. So when you weigh out all of these things, add them all up, the net result for our revenue this year is $32,486,812. These next slides are just some charts showing you how percentages have changed over the years of where we receive our funding. So this is 2012-13. You can see property taxes were higher than equalized aid. In 16-17, that kind of flipped. In 2021, property taxes went down even more. Equalized aid went up. 21-22 stayed relatively the same. And this year, equalized aid went up to 46%, and our property taxes are going down to 30%. So now let's talk about our expenses. Clearly, the nature of our work, which is educating children, takes up about 80% of our expenses because it's invested in personnel. Our salaries and wages from last year actual to budgeted this year, you can see are quite different. Again, a lot of that is the increase in special ed expenses. We hired additional staff for the special ed students that we have this year. Benefits actually went down, and we'll talk about why in one of the next slides, but if you look at the total, our expenses went up around a little bit less than $700,000, which is a 3.13% increase. Again, remember, our revenue hasn't changed. So some of the changes for personnel and benefits that we implemented this year, all of our salary and wage increases are built in to the teacher framework and support staff handbook. Every building retained their building sub-teacher position this school year to assist with staffing shortages. Additional staff were added to meet the needs of the increase in special education students. We have approximately 37 to 40 more special education students that started school this September compared to last September. Many of them moved in at some point during the school year last year. So we have a full year of costs budgeted for those students. And again, that increase has been about $550,000, and there has not been any increase in special ed funding from the state to help cover this increase. Our WRS rates, that's the state retirement system, are going to increase 0.3%. Our district health insurance policy only went up 1% with minimal plan changes to our deductible. The main reason our benefits went down is because we brought on a dental insurance policy this year that gave us an almost 11% rate decrease with no plan changes and a move to cover out-of-network providers at 99% instead of 80%. So we saved money and increased the benefit for our staff, which is great. Other expense budget changes. Services went down a little bit due to other schools. Part of that is open enrollment out. Supplies went up. Those vary so much. Capital equipment kind of stayed the same. Insurance, basically the same. Other, relatively the same. Again, the biggest impact is our interfund transfer to special ed. You can see it's about $550,000. So the difference between our actual last year and this year is over $500,000. So these next slides will show you the actual expenses over the last few years. And it will basically verify that the majority of our budget has and will always remain as salaries and benefits. You can see that last year salaries were 54%, benefits were 20%, and this year salaries went up and benefits went down, which matches what I just presented. So as a recap, our total revenues for this school year are $32,486,812. Our expenses are $32,584,149. So we have a projected deficit of $97,337. However, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funds are in this budget of $900,000. So to keep in mind that without ESSER funds, we would be looking at a $1 million deficit. And that is directly due to the $0 increase in per student revenue limit. We've talked about this before. Over the last 3 years, had revenue limits gone up like they did in prior years, we would have received between $1 million and $1.3 million in additional funds in revenue limit. Our open enrollment expense is improving, or it's staying relatively the same. You can see the big decrease from 2021 to 21-22, and then anticipated for this school year is not much different than what it was last year. So that's a positive. Private school vouchers, you can see, are increasing, and they have over the last 3 years pretty substantially. Again, that's a line item on the revenue limit worksheet that is included in our revenue limit, saying that we get that money, but we don't. So, our special ed expenses have increased $550,000. Well, we're sending $590,000 to private school vouchers this year. So now let's review the tax levy for 2023. When I talked about equalized aid, that's the aid that we get from the state. And that a lot is based on valuations in towns. So last year, we received $12,458,216, and this year, we're going to receive $13,400,000. So in equalized aid, we're increasing from the state $943,000, which is an increase of 7.5%. And all that does is shift the money that we're receiving, because remember, our revenue limit is still what it was for 3 years. Doesn't matter where we get the money from, the max is still the same. So we're going to get more money from the state in equalized aid. It's going to reduce the tax levy and the mill rate because of that. So the tax levy for Fund 10 only, which is also on, I think all of you received the annual meeting, like this sheet. You'll see it broken down on there. But Fund 10, our revenue limit is $22,245,000. We take out our equalized aid, which is $13,400,000, and then we take out a couple of the other aids that we get. and then we get our allowable revenue. So the allowable revenue is saying this is what you can tax your taxpayers to fund Fund 10. So $8.6 million. If you look at a comparison between 21 and 22, you will see how this is different, how much it has changed. This is just the tax levy. So remember, our tax levy is Fund 10, it's our referendum debt, and community ed. We have three different sections that we tax for. You can see our Fund 10 has gone down $1.3 million. And debt service fund, I mean, that will take a while to actually see a great difference, but it's down a little bit. Non-referendum debt, that is in there if we ever had anything if we had debt that was not tied to a referendum. Years ago, we did have a line item in there when WRS districts had to pay a certain amount to kind of smooth out the market volatility, so it was on there. And community education, we tax for $185,000. So our tax levy is going down about $1.2 million from last year. And this is just a levy comparison. You can see the decrease, the percent decrease is almost 10%. So our mill rate for 2023 is going to be $6.37 per thousand. Last year, it was $7.83. We had an 11% increase in property values, so our mill rate declined by $1.46 per thousand. Here's a graph, a historical graph of our district tax rates, and you can see over the last 36 years, we are at the lowest mill rate we've been at. So that's great, but it also does bring up other discussions because at some point, it's going to go back up. But we also thought this would be a good time just to bring up we've talked about this term called cash defeasance before. We can't do anything this year, but that is where we use additional tax levy to pay off a portion of an existing bond or debt issue, which is our referendum debt. The funds are deposited into an escrow account, they earn interest, and when the call date of the debt issued comes up, they put this additional money onto our referendum debt. In essence, you're going to pay down your referendum debt sooner. Most districts, when you start to see drops in your mill rate of $1, of these large amounts, to smooth out the pain that it will cause when it swings the other way, you have the option to not drop your tax levy down to $6.37, but you could put it somewhere in between $7.83 and $6.37. So you're still giving your citizens a tax break, but that difference is then considered a cash defeasance, and those funds are then put into an escrow account to pay down debt. It's just something that we might want to think about in the next coming year. You usually talk about it in spring when you're building the budget. And we have some resources that we could potentially bring in just to inform everyone of what it is, how it works, and things like that. So let's just talk about a few other additional items that are in our budget. Building projects. We completed some large building projects this past summer. We replaced the hip boiler, we did the pool HVAC system, and the track and field repair. We're going to continue to work with the Board Facilities Committee just to prioritize capital maintenance projects as funding is available. However, we have a very high priority project that's going to take precedence this year, and that's the chiller at the high school. We know it's going to cost approximately $500,000 to replace, which could potentially put any other projects on hold this school year. So as it gets closer, we'll bring those reports to you. We're hoping that it will be completed by the end of next summer. I know that there's some delays already being talked about, but hopefully they won't affect it. What's that?
Is that in our budget for this year, or is that coming?
No. Yeah. Usually, if we find that we've underspent budgets, then that's where we go and say, okay, let's tick off a couple of these projects that we have. This year, I don't think we'll be doing that. We'll probably be putting everything that we can to this chiller. Our food service program is a self-sustaining program that must generate enough revenue to cover their expenses each year and strive to build up a fund balance. This year, meals are no longer free. The programs that provided that benefit were not renewed. However, due to them being free the last 2 years, food service has built up a nice fund balance. They added $454,000 to their fund balance last school year. So they currently have $511,000 in their fund balance. Although that seems great and healthy, we're anticipating operating losses over the next few years due to lower participation because now you have to pay for your school meals, higher food costs and higher operating costs. So we'll just keep our pulse on that. Any deficits would be offset by their fund balance. Community Ed is another self-sustaining program. They ended the 21-22 school year adding $87,000 to their fund balance. A lot of that is still attributed to their staff writing grants. They have some really great funds coming in for grants that they wrote. Their fund balance is about $439,000. Those funds are going to be used for projects such as playground equipment, maybe some of it maybe to the 3K program, and then their operating costs going forward. This year, we're projecting a deficit of $86,000. However, their daycare is doing very, very well, so we really don't think that's going to come to fruition, which is great. Their levy suggested this year is still $185,000, which is no change from a long time. That levy supports middle school extracurricular programs and coaches' pay, which they incurred and added some more this year. They added dance, tennis, golf, and then intramurals. Lifting is a new one, intramural dance and intramural tennis. So those are all really great things. And then community education overhead. And just a reminder that if the funding for community ed is not enough to cover programs, then those programs are no longer offered. So we'll continue to monitor their funding needs and just see, what the future holds for them. But right now, they're doing really well too. Looking ahead to 23-24, again, we are just keeping an eye on our decline in enrollment and monitoring potential impacts of that. We'll be watching for any revenue limit changes for next school year, but we're still anticipating 0, which is obviously going to continue to create major operational deficits in Plymouth and just throughout the state. We're not the only school district that is facing this. Private school vouchers continue to increase, which results in an additional cost to citizens. Those funds are not revenue that is siphoned to our school district. ESSER 3 funds are available through September of 2024. It's going to continue to be used to help offset the anticipated fiscal cliff by that $0 revenue limit increase. We'll continue to watch those funds. We have done what I think is a great job managing those funds. We have divided them by the years so that we didn't expense all of them at one time and then find ourselves in a conundrum. We have enough to get us through 23, 24, and then hopefully something will change at the state level. Our health and dental insurance programs will be reviewed again in spring. Changes will be implemented as necessary. Our handbooks and frameworks they provide a good predictable amount of salary increase. We'll continue to operate in a fiscally responsible manner. We'll continue to find innovative ways to provide services for our students in the most cost-effective manner. And although some of this information seems dire, I want to assure everyone that Plymouth School District is in a fiscally sound position. Our fund balance is healthy. It is at almost $8.5 million, which is great and a lot by design. And we'll continue to be aware and prepared for the challenges ahead with funding. That's it. Does anyone have any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. So with that, then, I need a motion to approve the tax levies as recommended. Fund 10, General Fund, for $8,667,521. Fund 80, Community Service, for $185,000. For Fund 30, Debt Service, $2,969,575, for a total levy of $1,822,000, or $22,069, or $96. Middle, I'll try that last one again. $11,822,096.
Make a motion to approve the tax levy.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say yes. Yes. Opposed? Thank you. That recommendation will go to our board meeting. Now we need to authorize the board to engage in legal counsel during the 2022-2023 fiscal year. That's,
There's a motion in a second.
do we say who our legal counsel is?
We don't need to, no.
Oh.
Because we could shop around.
Oh, we could shop around, so it just authorizes us. All right. So we need a motion for that.
I make a motion that we engage with legal counsel during the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Second?
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All right, we need a motion to authorize salaries for school board members for the 2022-2023 school year.
That's in the last page of your packet.
The last page of
That the portion where what you're making right now is
that. Oh, in the last packet, sorry. All right, so we need a motion to,
I'll make a motion to approve the salaries for school board members for 22-23.
all right.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? All right. Item 12, set date and time for the next annual meeting. We're suggesting October 17th, 2023, 5:30 PM. Motion?
I make a motion to set the date and time for the next meeting, annual meeting, October 17th, 2023, 5:30.
Second?
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Finally, presentation from the floor of business appropriate for the annual meeting. Anyone sign? No one signed in? Moving on, that'll take us to item 14, which is a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn from the annual meeting.
Second.
First and second, all in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed? All right, thank you. And that'll close the annual meeting, and now we'll move into our regular board meeting. Do you guys want to take a break, anyone? Oh, Kurt needs 5 minutes to set
bring
things
up
up.
the,
All right, so we'll take 5 minutes, and then we'll start again with our board meeting.